Thokozani bokoko na bomkhulu lesedi le kganya amgogo lerato ke lerato amgogo khanda lembube and it's Saturday. Listen, ke a bona hore I'm overdressed but ke a kgatsela. I'm freezing. I'm so afraid of the cold. Okay, let's just read the Bible, pray, and then we're going to start today's class. And then we'll see. Lebitso la ntate la morale mahelang, amen. Motho ya ithorisang ka dimpho tsa molomo o jwalo ka maru le moya o senang pula, amen. Ya aisaneng le wena o mo fapohele sewelo e sere wa motena a qetella a o hloile. Amen. Lebitso la ntate la morale mahelang, amen. Ntata rona magodimong lebitso la la letswe ho temuswa ha o thatwetse lefatsheng jwalo ka etswa lodimong o re fe ka jene bohobo le kan batsatsing le leng o re tshwarele melato rona jwalo ka re tshwala ba re setelwang se re se mo lekomelwane ho ye mobe hobane mmuso kwa hao le matla le kganya le kgalejwe le ka o sa feleng, amen, amen. All right, today's topic is very personal to me. Today's topic is controversial. It's been coming. Today's topic has been coming, and I want you guys to try to follow. I'm also going to try to follow because I got a lot of revelations this week about this topic, but I didn't realize. That's the first thing. Second thing, I've been saying I want to do something on TikTok. I'm going to try to do a series. I'm busy praying about it. A series called The Seat of the Self, right? The Seat of the Self. So this is supposed to be like short videos. God help me. Let me try to make them short. These are supposed to be short videos where I go through controversial Bible scriptures and how they apply to your money. I really have been saying that I want to do something for people that are making money, that are in the corporate space, even if you're not yet making money. But this is going to be an extension of my private Thronic classes. So God help me. Let me get to it. If you guys can tell me how I can make recordings and save them, then I can do it all in one day. You know, then I can release one video, whatever, twice a week. Because, wow, I don't think you guys have the time. Okay. Today's topic is ancestral money, right? And I thought to myself, you know, why am I having a conversation about money when, quote unquote, I'm not where I want to be, you know, in terms of my own wallet? But then I remembered that in 2023, one of my requests to my ancestors was, I want you guys to show me how to teach how to manifest money for other people. I've tried the cinnamon stuff, like those things, they don't work for me. They work for other people. They don't work for me, right? So I wanted like because I'm a method-based person. I understand through learning. So I was asking about that. So this is 2 years in the making, and in the last few days, everything has come together. What is ancestral money? Money from your ancestors. Financial blessing from your ancestors, right? And why must we talk about it? It's because a lot of people, I feel over the years as I've done readings, you guys get shown spiritual symbols for financial blessings, right? And I feel like Badimo Balona are doing this deliberately because they're trying to show you guys the link between money and ancestral money. So money that your forefathers and your foremothers give you, right? And your spirituality. But I also believe that they are doing it this way because they know that we have not been able to yet understand that these things are parallel in the sense that they come from the same source, and in the sense also that they are applied the same way. So how? Go profeta batho, right? I'm a good prophet, but I don't have the money in my wallet, right? Because go profeta batho, when you say you've got the spirits tsa ko metsing, what I'm essentially saying as mo profeta is, out of the portals of heaven, out of portals of the ancestral world, the one thing that I know how to harness, like the flow of water, is my ability to read people's energies, right? So my gift as a porofito is fundamentally like a practiced harnessing from the spirit world of being open and receptive to other people's energy, right? And I give sporofito, quote unquote. So let's say sporofito is water. I give that water in the form of a verbal healing, right? In the form of a verbal command. I didn't even realize this until today. In the form of a verbal command on behalf of someone else, right? However, that command, it manifests itself into whichever way, right? Into that person's life. Because I've learned to harness, I've practiced the openness to identifying an energetic problem. So if Sporofito was a maths equation, I've basically learned how to solve for X, right? But here's the thing. With regards to money, it is the exact same concept that functions. And I'm going to show you guys how the two are so parallel. With money, for those who harness money, right, they have simply practiced or learned to grab from the spirit world as well, using badimo ba ko metsing as well. Just like us prophet, using badimo ba ko metsing as well, right? The flow of energy that becomes tangible as zeros in their bank accounts, right? Now, because I'm doing sporofito, it sounds to the African child, it sounds noble, it sounds modest, it sounds greater to be able to channel a prophetic word in somebody else's life, right? And I'm going to talk about why it sounds like the noble thing to do, right? And in the African child's mind, the concept of channeling money from the spirit world using the same water spirits, right? Using the same concepts, the idea of channeling money so that it turns into zeros and your cup, right, overflows with zeros to the point that you can give that out as well, not as a prophetic word, right, but as an actual offering, as a tangible thing, right? We are struggling so much with the concept of self, first me, right? But what we don't realize is that Sporofito functions the same way. First you. The reason why I'm not doing readings this week is because I'm tired, right? First you. So both these outcomes of the same energy, right? They are centered in you having a main character, or not even a God complex, but yes, a God complex about yourself, right? And then you channel, whether it is an energetic flow of money, because Prophet was an energetic flow of money, right? Or the paper flow of money, right? Or even the electronic, which is also the energetic flow of money, right? So the first thing that we have to the first thing I want you guys to get firstly is that it actually does none of you guys any good for you guys to fear commanding, requesting, commanding for energy in the form of money for you. Because just like what Jesus Christ did, he commanded other people to bring bread. He didn't go get it. He did not go get it. And that bread was then multiplied. So you commanding financial paper, it's just paper. So what you would be commanding and what I would be commanding, you and I both have to harness that skill, right? Practice the skill of flowing, of sending flow of water, right? So that it's for the benefit of others. So for you, the benefit is your family. The benefit is your friends, your loved ones, your provision. What is the benefit? The benefit, and how does money then benefit your ancestry? You are putting them in a position where they've had to pass each other the baton for over 400 years. You are now putting in them on the seat of the colonizer. You are also putting them on the seat of the master, right? And it's so interesting because that is why our ancestors are not interested in talking about racial tensions, apartheid, slavery. They don't give a shit about that, right? Because the reason is that it would be more beneficial to your whole bloodline that each person that has come and gone as a slave, their collective joint effort is with making you the master. Because when you sit on the master's seat, right, you start to understand, right, and elevate your ancestry in such a way that can never be reversed. That's the thing. They were enslaved for 400 years or more, but they only need one person to sit as the master. And that one person will be able to set the ancestral trajectory, right, for another 400 years. So they're not really looking for the changes to happen gradually. And I'll tell you now, the reason why I rekwatile about apartheid and slavery over the years as spiritualists is because we've got a false belief that it'll take us 400 years to undo it. Because we look at this living reality as a linear thing, 1 year for 1 year, 1 rand for 1 rand. Our limitations with the years to course correcting 400 years is precisely at the heart of our limitation of why we want to convert hours of work into productivity and money. It is the same matrix type of thinking, right? If we stopped believing that it would take us 400 years or 20 years into building a decent pension, if we stopped looking at life from a linear perspective, right? Because your ancestors experience everything right now. You say whatever and they experience it right now, right? A very big part of you experiences everything right now. Okay. I need to take a break because I can hear that my thoughts are running away with me, right? I'm going to take a short break. And then when I get back, I'm going to cap it. I want to cap it so we get to the point. Okay. So we get to the point. So I just need 1 minute. There's someone who asked what today's, Gogo Hippie's already responded. So I'm going to take 1 minute to have some coffee and jump onto this. Okay. There was a short break. I wanted to just catch myself because so if it's that easy, why haven't we done it? Let me tell you why. I watched two very interesting stories this week. The first one, I believe, Faith Ngezi, who got married off by her family, good 12 apostles, in grade 10, and she was married. Her husband was a drunkard, basically, because he was a child, right? And Faith Nketsi's grandmother was a staunch 12 apostles, follower. So the prophecy, the quote unquote prophecy that came about that she must get married and basically get entrapped, was then, the grandmother couldn't challenge it. So she agreed, and that's how Faith Nketsi got married, right? Fast forward, she got married. Her aunt came to visit her one time. She'd had a child, and she basically ran off with her aunt. And what I was asking my ancestors this week was, with all of that has happened, sorry, all right, no, I'm sorry. Gosh, sorry to the name of Faith Nketsi. I don't know why I had the name Faith, but what I asked my grandmother was, why now is she rolling in the dough? That was the long and short. This week was just to ask my ancestors, show me the case studies. Why are people making money and others are not? Is it the suffering element that she's gone through the suffering, and what was it for? And just as I asked that, I watched a video right here on TikTok of this very lovely lady. She's got a black and white necklace, like almost like a choker, but it's beads. And she was talking about altars, but I watched like the first 10 seconds, right? I must see that lady, because I watched her talk about the altars of your home, and that some altars from your home are not beneficial. Okay. And then I saw a video a couple of weeks back of a lady who was saying, you can't ask your oppressed ancestors to give you money. So I watched that video and I knew that that lady, okay, the last video, I looked at it and I was like, no, she's wrong, right? And I know that it was like an aha moment for some people, you know, that you cannot ask people who were poor to give you money. And I looked at it and I was like, no. So that video came back in my mind and I was like, I know it sounds like the right thing to do because we've got a religious trauma as a people, right? We've got a religious trauma, a serious one. We have a serious religious trauma in the sense that when people, Black people, are asked if we worship our ancestors, our immediate response is to say, no, we just honor them. We don't worship them. We believe in one God, right? Which is a conversation for another day, but it's an absolute nonsensical statement, right? It's a complete nonsensical statement. To want to justify it for yourself or to others, the one God concept, right? And then turn around and say that, no, religion came with colonizers. That's not even the point, right? But let's go into these topics. So I'm going to start with the lady who spoke about the altars because she gave me a complete aha moment. And I sat down with myself and I thought, okay, I want you to think about it. All of you are born into some type of an altar. All of us, all black, white, we are born into an altar, right? What is an altar? What is an altar, right? An altar is an agreement that somebody in your bloodline made. That is at the foundation of your altar. It's an agreement that somebody in your bloodline made with their own understanding or their own version of God to be given something that was beneficial to them at the time in exchange for something else. Right? Now, when I say their version of God, that is for my Thronic class. Like we are driving each other crazy with that one. Let me give you guys a simple example. An altar, let's take this to your great-great-grandmother. She was living with an abusive man, your great-great-grandfather. And somehow she went to go and see somebody to get spiritual help. Or maybe I just said this great-great-grandfather because he was so abusive. Right? And it's very, it's gonna touch on what we are doing now. So your great-great-grandmother made a spiritual agreement, because when you go and see a spiritual person and that spiritual person offers you a solution, that person, the spiritualist, healer, mo profeta, is opening a portal. And that portal is where you have to consent. Right? That's why really pata, if we do. That's why we give y'all candles. That's why y'all have to say things. That's why you have to be standing at mountains. That's why y'all have to be standing way. Right? And we, the spiritualists, we do what we do. We remain here. And then you go with the result of what we have offered you a solution to. And then you go home and you see that the solution that Lerato gave, it worked. So your great-grandmother goes home, right? Gets this Lizo in whichever way. Tames her husband, her abusive, violent husband down, right? And On the one end, she is probably stopping another altar of her husband that's been continuing, because your great-great-grandfather wouldn't be so abusive if he himself didn't experience abuse. So on the one hand, your great-great-grandmother is subduing. She is breaking down the altar that your great-grandfather, her husband, was born into, because it's been a trajectory of abuse. So he's perpetuating what has been happening in his life. On the one end, your great-grandmother, she kills that altar, right? Right? Doesn't heal it, but completely annihilates it. She does get her peace. Absolutely, she gets her peace, right? Meaning now her altar from her home, because she was also spiritually drawn to an abusive guy, because maybe where she came from the altar from her home was an altar of poverty. So she gave herself into this marriage, right? Without thinking it through. So when her husband's altar is subdued, her altar goes up. Her maternal altar goes up. It gains prominence. Why? Because by subduing him spiritually, she has become the alpha and the omega of the marriage. She has made a declaration that I will make decisions on behalf of my husband, right? As if he were my son. She puts him under her spiritual control. And this is not a new thing. This is where spirit mothers and spirit fathers come from, right? This is where spirit mothers and spirit fathers come from. Now, her altar of poverty, look, that altar is raised in vibration, because your great-great-grandmother, she's relaxed. Girls, relax now. Girls, relaxed. You know, she can breathe. She doesn't have blue eyes anymore. She can think, right? Two things are going to happen here. If she decided to do this to your great-granddad quick enough, maybe before having a lot of children for him, before having a lot of children for him, the children that will come after her husband's altar has been lowered will be girl children. Why? The feminine, her altar has been brought up. So it means your great-grandmother's ancestors and your great-grandmother's dad is the Dlozi of the house. He's the real man of the house. And he's going to give her more children that are women children, just like her. Right? So it looks great. In the beginning, look. With Gogo and her daughters that will come after Sijiso say, listen, she's going to do well. She's going to have daughters. She's going to have a lot of daughters. Right? However, the few sons that she will have, two things are going to happen. The altar of her husband, it has been subdued, meaning under her control and under her ancestors' control. It is not, okay, I said annihilated earlier on, but actually not. Because Sijiso needs a renewal, right? Sijiso needs a renewal. Now, she went and subdued this altar without knowing the spiritual background of her husband. And if that guy has got a rainmaker's background, right? Associated with Limandau, associated with Bagalanga, associated with the Tonga people. If that guy has got a rainmaker's background, rainmakers, Kibo Makosi, when they apply themselves. And what do normally? They immediately, they don't wait for an ancestor to die. Meaning, Mkulu, your great-grandmother's husband's bloodline, if it's from a rainmaker's background, one of the children, the boy children, the ancestors from this man, the great-grandfather, will jump straight into the boy children whilst great-granddad is alive. So it means your grandmother, your great-grandmother, your great-grandparents' children, their sons are going to be the first. What rainmakers are going to do, because they must balance the scales, they will make sure that the boy children start to show symptoms of what a subdued altar means. And what is that? Alcoholism. Your great-grandmother's boy children will not work. They won't keep one wife. They will date around and have a lot of children, right? They won't marry one wife. If they do marry, they will marry a wife just like your great-grandmother and worse. So the malume to your grandmother now, let's just make it simple. The malume, so great-grandparents' children, son, the malume will go and marry a woman who is physically showing the signs of spiritual aggression. She will be a downright witch. Right? And her aim will be to destroy Malume. Why must your great-grandfather's bloodline do this? They need to show their makoti that, listen, ma'am, because you thought that you can play God over our son, watch the ripple effect play over your own sons, and there'll be absolutely nothing you can do. And this is at the heart of why Bokukubalona and your great-grandparents dilo tse dingata ne ba thola. Right? Because they knew the origin of these things. Now, you've got great-grandparents' boy children being very much unstable, even eventually being killed. Great-grandmother's girl children go on to find men that look like they're dead or jisitwing. So her daughter children marry men who are in a better financial standing, because most great-grandmother's altar is in the air. Ikomaru. And her daughters batolaula these men. Not even gore batlo ba tlisetsa setlhare, no. Because of the raised energetic altar, right? The spirit that was summoned for your great-grandmother to be able to do this, that spirit will live in the great-grandmother's children's daughter's body. Whichever man that these women will sleep with, these women will turn into sexual healers or sexual diviners without even knowing. They will subdue these men naturally. Fast forward. How does this affect you? Right? Now, great-grandmother has made this decision. She's already made a spiritual agreement with an entity. Whether she believes it's God or what, it doesn't matter. Sesalang, it's a spirit that is going to live in your family. Right? The condition, if you're a girl child, is that great-grandmother better love her girl daughters, her girl children. She better love them because she's already made them sex witches by virtue of making that contract. And those daughters are going to be the ones that are going to take after her, whether they like it or not. right? Because this altar was placed upon a spirit. The spirit will live in the daughters. She better love them, right? And not ill-treat them. If she loves them and doesn't ill-treat them, then her husband's rainmaker altar that has been subdued will only affect bomalume, the men, great-grandmother's boys. Great-grandmother's boys. It'll only affect them. If your great-grandmother loves her daughter children, and your great-grandmother's daughter children will get married to men that they'll be able to subdue, right? Whether it's by getting them to make money for them or whatever. And then obviously, that's your grandmother now. And your mom then has to then in turn love, your grandmother has to in turn love your mother. She must, right? Because your grandmother, the moment she gave birth to your mother, she gave birth to your mom with the spirit. With the spirit. Right? Now, this spirit, you can call it a demon if you like. It's up to you. Right? Your grandmother better love your mom. Because your mom is born into this altar. Whether grandmother got married by your mother's dad or not, normally those altars, kopili, right? Your grandmother will not get married, or her baby daddy will, your biological grandfather, he will either stand up one day and leave her, or he'll turn out to be a liar and go and marry somebody else. It is the design. It was the original command of that altar. Your great-grandmother said, I want to be the one who is in control. I want my altar and my people's altar to be the one that is prevalent. Meaning, your msamo at your home, through virtue of magic and the summoning of entities, right? Whether you guys call these entities God or what, doesn't matter, right? Through the summoning of these entities, your grandmother has now created a feminine God complex in the bloodline, right? Your grandmother now better love your mother, right? Because chances are where there is a feminine God complex, men don't stick around. The women over time, right? Your grandmother, your mom, even physically, they will look more beautiful. If you want to look at beautiful women, quote unquote, women that are like obviously beautiful or obviously attractive, there is most likely a feminine altar somewhere. Right? And then in turn, your mother must love you. She must love you. Whether your father ran away, because it's part of the altar, she must love you unconditionally. Now, someone was asking, and this is where the problem begins. When great-grandmother, after jising Ntate Mogolo, she starts to become the tyrant because she's projecting her own suffering, right? And she's projecting the suffering of her own father and mother. Because now her altar is the one that's like a matriarch now. When she starts to project this hatred onto her husband and eventually onto her children, whether it's anger for the years that she was beaten or what, right? When she starts to use her power to do that, to project control, when she starts to be the man now, right? Then now that entity that she made an agreement with, already it turns karmic or demonic in nature. Now, the question is, was the entity demonic to begin with? Well, it had no abstract. It was a trickster energy. It was an airbender energy, right? If she gets angry and becomes controlling and becomes masculine. Because now she's able to run her man's life, right? And she shoves her daughters and emotionally abuses her daughters. That altar becomes like a Mdliwa altar, like a demonic altar. Because all that great-grandmother has done is switch roles and become the man. But the original agreement with the entity was, let's subdue the man and let feminine energy run this family. Now, when you kill feminine energy after subduing masculine energy and now taking feminine energy and converting it into a negative or a masculine wounded energy, now your great-grandmother is becoming like a Mundao spirit on her own, a dark one at that. Because now she becomes a woman who has made a decision, like she becomes like a matriarch who kills other women, who destroys feminine energy. So her children, her daughters, so this is your grandmother, they become emotionally insecure. They don't have a paternal figure now, a strong paternal figure to look to for masculine protection, right? Even if it was a toxic masculine protection. They don't even have that. Their father is like another woman who's got no voice. And their mother is the tyrant, the mother who now becomes the representative of a toxic masculine spirit within a woman's body. So what are your great-grandmother's daughters going to do? They will need to work like dogs because their mother is running them like animals. Why? Because men are the ones who herd cows. And she's already turned that energetic, that outer energy into a toxic, demonic, masculine spirit. Your grandmother and her sisters, they will now start running for man's validation. Their mom will shove them into toxic marriages. Why? Because she's a twisted masculine spirit now. And that was not the original agreement, right? They will get married to men who now beat them. So the contract that your great-grandmother made with that entity is actually now being revoked. Because now your grandmother and her sisters start to experience experience what their mother experienced. And it's going to be worse. Not only will this man beat her, he will also be poor. He will put her in a place of financial and emotional poverty. So it's like then your grandmother, she bears the sins of her mother's decisions. And your grandmother now bears the demonic element of that altar. She does not have enough emotional and independent spiritual support to start saying, I look good, I can do. She doesn't. Her mother eradicated and destroyed that. Your grandmother will give birth to your mother, right? After her man who beats her and eventually leaves her, he will leave her. If he doesn't leave her, he'll kill her. One of the two, right? Your grandmother gives birth to your mother. Your mother does not have a father because that was the original agreement of that altar. Your mother does not know her father, will not know her father, and now your mother is being emotionally abused. So because now that entity is turned into a demon, now it's going to drive your mother up the wall. Your mother will have only two choices, either to revolt against her mother, right? And here's the sad thing. Your mother probably doesn't know how to revolt against her mother because your mother's biological father is not there. And her mom, your grandmother, is now just a worse off representative of a toxic masculine spirit. And your mom's got nowhere to run to. Your mom can give herself to substances and alcoholism. That is generally the trend. Your mom will give herself to substance abuse and alcoholism after numerous failed relationship and marriage attempts. Right? Your mom's only hope is to run. But she will keep on meeting a man that aligns with the demon now of that altar until she decides, no, I'm not going to do that. Right? And now anything that is demonic, it brings about, remember that great-grandfather's boy children? Now your mom is the boy child. She's going to be an alcoholic. She's going to be roaming the streets, trying to make sense of her life. Having 2, 3, 4, 5 of you guys with 2, 3, 4, 5 different men. Until your mom gets to a point where she fucking just gives up. Because you know what? Baby daddy number 3, 4, he was the end. And she eventually gives herself completely to alcohol. And here's the toxic thing about that. If your mom's mom, your grandmother, is still alive, your mother's life will become significantly worse. Because now the perpetuator of the demonic converted altar is living. So your mother is not even going to realize that she is still under demonic influence from her own mother. And not because her own mother is an evil person, but your grandmother now has had men leave her behind. And she's already angry because her mother was angry. Right? So your grandmother has had men leave her behind. She's not going to validate her daughter. Right? And she will almost watch, because that's what a demon does. She will almost watch with satisfaction as your mother gets left behind by men, so that your grandmother can say to herself, and that's how demons work. They work on the ego, that she can say to herself, but I was better. I was better. Look at my daughter. And a lot of us are born under such altars. Your mom has you guys. Your grandmother, without knowing, becomes drawn to the star child of your mother. The child who's like the fresh hope. Because your mother, because she is in, and this is universal law, energy never dies, it just changes form. The potential of your mom and the things that she was supposed to do that were shut down spiritually, that potential doesn't go anywhere. Your mother has to just make another version of herself, which is you. So then your grandmother will choose the star child. The entity within her will choose the child with the brightest light. And your grandmother will bring you very close to her. Right? That now you can feed her with pure positive energy because she sucked all the life out of your mom. Right? And she realizes, because now your mom is a complete maniac, she realizes she can't pump any more energy. She will choose you to pump love, gifts, cherishing, all for what? 2 reasons. To affirm to your mother that that demonic altar that has had its grasp over her is going nowhere. Make your mom feel even more powerless, that she can't take care of her children. Right? Because a demon's job is to destroy. And at the same time, to harness your light power, your pure, positive, unlimited love. Demons know that unlimited, pure, positive love is like fuel. She will harness your star power. She will harness your spiritual gifts. She will harness everything and exchange that for presents. And this is practical. We see this with people, Baba Naling Manono spirits. Why is it that the child that you've aborted now comes as a spiritual gift? It means that there is a lot of potential energy, powerful energy from that child. You're harvesting energy from your own child, and that's okay. That's okay because that child's not physically living here. So that child can give you unlimited energy. So your grandmother does that. You continue loving her. You guys create a whole gap where you guys decide to skip your mom out, right? Because mom is a maniac, right? And you and granny live happily ever after in each other's eyes, right? Right. Until granny now starts to see that your star power is expanding. She's got to now subliminally coerce you. So now she's got to do a destiny swap. She's got to send you into a marriage. And she's not doing this consciously. She's got to send you into a marriage with a man who will break you enough that you give off so much powerful energy to him and to her by needing her. She will indirectly, and this is where a lot of women are having problems. She will indirectly send you, that demon will send you into a relationship that's going to make you need her. If you need her, you can never grow. You can never grow. She becomes your spirit mom. Your husband becomes like the catalyst. He breaks you, you hurt, you cry, you go to her. She harnesses energy by giving you advice, by being the mother, but by not stopping this man. That's very important. So you are in a cycle between a man and your grandmother, that she can continue to harness energy to you. Between the two of them, that original agreement for financial abundance, that original feminine altar has got no chance. It's got no chance. It has got no chance. And you find yourself being empathetic as you grow older to your mom. Whereas when you were growing up, Gugu made sure that you are apathetic, totally emotionally disconnected from your mother. Right? So that she can continue to do what she does. And this is the same with mothers that do this to their children. Whenever a woman, a mother, breaks their child, girl or boy, that woman is creating this, that woman is perpetuating a certain altar. Why? Because every baby, when you guys are born, everyone, all of us, when we are born, we have our first ndwazo. Your mother loses water and blood, and you have been drinking that water, and when you are born, you will be eating. That blood is going to end up in your mouth. So each of us, you are born, you are initiated by virtue of a natural birth. You've had your ndwaso into this altar. Right. What does this have to do with money? What does this have to do with money? The altar now makes sure that you don't know your personal feminine energy. So a lot of you guys are masculine because of certain altars like this. The demon now has been traveling in your bloodline. And yes, you can, go and make declarations. In the name of Jesus, break curses, generational. No. I can promise y'all, generational curses, you don't break them by declaring and speaking in tongues. Not when you have not quite understood the severity of your life. The only time the name of Jesus becomes applicable is when you can see the effects of the altar in your life. So what does that mean? It means that you can't be sitting in a toxic marriage and declare breaking of ancestral curses. Jesus is not coming. He never initiated that altar. It's got nothing to do with him. Jesus is not coming. He is not coming. He never, right, took any part. And there are places where Jesus speaks about these altars, right? And I hope to teach that when I talk about the seat of the self. So as you sit in the toxic marriage that perpetuates a demonic spirit that has been consuming either you from your mother or your father's side, because your parents come together from both different altars, right? Your parents might be good people, but there's so much that has happened in their lives. These altars, you are born into them. You eat the ndwaso into them, right? Go ahead and declare the name of Jesus. Uduti le this man. This man is an affirmation of the demonic energy within your altar. This man, he is a physical representative. He is the demon made manifest. He is the demon in your face. And God says, flee from the devil. Really, flee. You want Jesus to help you? Tell this nigga to go. But here's the thing. You're emotionally broken. You're psychologically weak. Right? This demon has had your entire life to groom you. Not only that, you were born into it. You were initiated into that altar. So when you guys say you're breaking ancestral curses, what you actually are doing is you are stopping a demon that could be 7 generations. Meaning it has lived and died through 7 generations in your family. With no hindrance. And even the people who didn't like it, they couldn't do shit about it. They couldn't do anything about it. Even the people who didn't like it couldn't do anything about it, because demonic entities, what they do is they want to create a conducive, they're like germs or viruses. They need to make sure that the environment is conducive to the thriving of this virus. And you now coming and throwing an antibiotic, right? Which is what a spiritual calling or trying to break such an altar is. It's an antibiotic. You got to kill all the cells now. You've got to kill all the good and the bad energies in your bloodline. That is why it is so hard for you guys to come out of breaking such an altar, because that altar means that you should be prepared to completely destroy your own life. Because that demon has been living comfortably in your bloodline for so long. And it will not hesitate, because it has gained the power of 7 generations being perpetuated, getting smarter, getting to know your DNA better. When you say you've got an ancestral calling to undo generational curses, just know you are facing death. You better know that. You better know that. Right? You are facing death. Why? This entity has successfully killed 7 generations before you in many different ways. Alcoholism, abuse, self-destruction, self-sabotage, feeling like nothing, feeling worthless, mothers beating their daughters, all of that. All of that. Daughters getting raped, sons raping daughters, sons becoming uncles that rape their nieces, sons that try to make money and they can't, and they end up marrying a woman who's a witch, all of that. The environment has been reinforced so many times, right? Now, here's the thing. It means then that this demon was initially a demon that was supposed to assist your family. It was supposed to alleviate poverty, because your great-grandmother was chilled. She was supposed to focus her energy. And the children, the women, and the men that we see succeeding financially, their parents, their great-grandparents, their foremothers, they knew, whether intuitively or in another way, how to run altars like that and not destroy their own product, and how to make sure their children, their daughters, get the best of everything. right? And a descendant from a bloodline like that becomes like a Kifilwe. She will inevitably become rich. The way Kifilwe got married and the prophecy that came out of the church was the demonic altar, religious demonic altar that had been created at her home. Meaning her grandmother is the one who created that altar because her grandmother found life for 12 apostles. But a good thing is the grandmother didn't have Pilu Embi. She was afraid. She was going through a religious trauma, so a religious altar, which gave birth to a religious demon. There is a religious demon. There is a religious demon. There is a religious demon. Some of you guys are calling on the name of God. It's not God. It's a snake from your family. Right? But that's a conversation for another day. And for some reason, for the fact that Kifilwe's foremothers, her upper, older than Koko, their actions informed how Kifilwe's grandmother responded. Kifilwe's grandmother, because she was now at the precipice of an altar of religious comfort, so she made a spiritual agreement with a religious entity, aka God, 12 apostles, believing that her life will be better, and it probably did. However, where you see the love, right, is where her great-grandmother doesn't force her to stay with that man. Where you see her aunt taking her home as she says she's running. So it means the family, although there was an altar set up, right, a religious altar, and the entity that was running that altar was now turning demonic, Kifilwe's grandmother and the family thought about it. They were like, They just could not take the action to pull her out, right? But Kifilwe's higher self, and the elders of the grandmother, right? The elders of the grandmother then made an intuitive call to her to say, just say that you're going to visit your family and run. And guess what? Her family was receptive. They may not have understood. It may not have been as easy as I'm saying it. They didn't drag her back there. So that is the sign that Kifilwe's grandmother, the altar that she had created, had not yet taken over as a demonic altar, and also it wasn't an ancient altar. You probably find that Kifilwe's grandmother was the first, St. Paul, right? Believing in what she did with all earnesty and love. And she still remembered to hold the love of her grandchild above all else. Even though she couldn't make the decision in the beginning, right? But with time, she rescued her through her daughters because her aunt went to fetch her. Okay, I'm going to take another short break, right? And then I'm going to try to wrap this up. I'm going to try to wrap it up, all right? And then we're going to talk about money and where she is, where Kifilwe is. Look, I don't know her wallet, I'm just saying from what I see. And this was the lesson that I learned from her story. I thought it was such a powerful story. But 1 minute. Ngiyabuya manje. Okay, Tokozan. So here's what we can learn from Kefilo's story with her family. Her grandmother went to St. Paul to break a generational curse that was coming from her foremothers, right? So the grandmother didn't go there out of malice, right? The grandmother, she was breaking a spiritual generational curse. And unfortunately, in the breaking the spiritual generational curse, right, she became complacent in the church, right? The church imutusiti, right? Because her grandmother needed to break spiritual curses, right? You might find there was somebody or nilingaka or whatever the case, right? Maybe Nasa did the right thing. And for that altar to be broken, Kefilo's grandmother had to go to the church and pray, right? To break that curse, right? And unfortunately, as she was in the church, because she was complacent, not because she's a bad grandmother, no. Or not because they were a bad family, no. Or because they were ignorant, no. It is in the nature of mankind to acclimatize and to warm up and stay comfortable. The unfortunate thing is that on a spiritual path means that you keep on breaking the barriers. That's why some of you guys are told, okay, yes and John, it's because you're supposed to be there for a short time. Right? Or then there's just something on the previous altars. There's a certain altar that you needed to eradicate using that energy, right? And then you move on. So unfortunately, she became a church member, just like all of our grandmothers. My grandmother is Kimulutere, grandmother Nilimu Wesele, but like full time. Right? And that's where the religious trauma bond, the religious trauma demon was born in her complacency, right? But she did not enter that church for religious reasons. She was breaking down an altar, right? And the love at the end of the day was what counted, right? Those ancestors, they were the ones who acted because they saw the righteousness behind her grandmother's self-offering of go St. Paul, right? Because she was breaking probably a more dangerous altar, right? Had she not gone go St. Paul, there could be a lot going on in the family, right? So those people, because they were freed, those ancestors, because they were freed, right? And Kefilo's grandmother decided to become the sacrificial lamb. Then they were freed and able to come down through Kefilo's intuition to say run. And Kefilo's spirit, because she is a star child. They call them chosen. We call you guys chosen ones, right? That intuition, that star within her, that light, right? It was immediately activated because it was always there. It was always there. That's what the evil religious leaders wanted. They wanted to harness that energy to further their church. That's exactly what they wanted, right? And they were channeling her energy. Hence, they forced to get her to marry a toxic man. They were trying to cleanse their own dirty demonic altars. That she became the energetic source, the pump, right? Because with her star angel, that church could have continued running and becoming very successful, right? So there was a lot of love even on her grandmother and on her ancestor's side, right? So she leaves. Great enough. She leaves. Right? Now, she herself, without even being aware, she broke an altar. She broke this altar on behalf of her grandmother. She freed her grandmother's true spirit, right? The grandmother's true spirit guided the grandmother to the church, that the grandmother can break previous curses. But the true spirit became sort of dormant because Granny started going to church. So Keilo became really the chosen one and broke her grandmother's bondage to now a different altar. Now, that is why she would attract people that now she says that, they are in the marine kingdom or they were not good for her. That star quality, she managed to harness at a very young age. And guys, when children are young or teenage years, their star energy is very potent. And that is why some of your mothers and your grandmothers, when they've been doing evil things, they want to break you at that time because that's when you are the most potent. So Keilo did a one-man show, right? And literally brought back the power of Jesus Christ into her bloodline. Why? Because now there were no more spiritual agreements. She broke the last one without even considering what others will think. She made an intuitive, a God-guided decision, right? She managed to harness the resurrection power of Jesus all on her own and break a thing Elungur had been holding her grandmother and was no longer serving the grandmother and even her mom and her aunts. The grandmother now was forced, right, to indirectly leave the church. Even if she never left it physically, I don't know if she did, but energetically, Kuku was released. So now that is why Keilo should be a born-again Christian. She truly is. She truly is. From an ancestral place, she is truly born again. The old her and all the old contracts have been completely broken. And they, as a bloodline, can now have a very clear connection to their highest form of what they identify as God. We don't see God the same way. God is not the same in our families, right? God is not the same in our families. And like I'm telling you guys, from personal experience, you can do declarations in the name of Christ. Because of an altar that you were born into or the one that you entered into. He's not going to do that, right? Because he has given you enough teachings, and he says that if you believe in what I do, then you will do too. But he also says, if you believe in my death, you will go to heaven. These are two things. If you believe what he has been doing, you'll be able to apply it, right, into making money. That's what he was doing. He was turning water to wine, bread to feed multitude. This is Jesus teaching the law of money. If you do what I do, then I'm going to show you how to manifest money. You're not asking for the savior version of Jesus Christ. You're not. Because even that savior version cannot infiltrate your contracts. However, if you believe that he has died for your sins, meaning you are righteous in the eyes of God, then you will be able to meet God. This is where you use moya wabo profeta. Oh, ki moya wabo profeta. Jesus shows us that the same source, if you do what he did, you learn the spirit of manifesting, right? If you believe in the impossible, right? In his death and resurrection. Because for you to be able to oporofite, you must believe that you've got unlimited connection to a divine source. Meaning you must have had some form of a death and a resurrection. Then you will know heaven. So here's the difference though. Sometimes we want the knowing God element,
the porofeta element. The problem is, just like in Jesus's life, for him to be able to open wide that portal, right, for quote unquote others who believe in him, he needed to die, guys. He needed to disassociate from Joseph. So he broke immediately from the altar, Yabo David. People called him son of David, but from day one, when he started to follow his enlightenment, he said, I don't want to be part of that. I don't want to be part of that. His father was a carpenter. Yeah, he learned to be a carpenter, but at some point he told Joseph, listen, wait, I got another daddy in heaven. I don't want to be a carpenter. I don't want to follow in your footsteps. I don't want to follow in your footsteps, right? So Jesus broke the altar from Joseph's side. Why was it important for him to do that? Because now Mary, his wife, right, was quote unquote impregnated by the Holy Spirit. So Mary had spiritual dominion over Joseph. We're going back to that altar. Mary is actually the descendant, Yabo David, right? Joseph too, but Mary Joseph and Mary are related. Mary is closer to that bloodline. So she was running a matriarch. God brought about his only beloved son through a matriarch-dominated msamo, altar, right? So he needed to now completely discard Joseph in return for God, an all-seeing and all-seeing, omnipotent, omnipresent entity. Why? It was important because if he didn't do that, Joseph would have expected Jesus to become a carpenter. And Jesus could not do that, right? And then later, when Jesus came back enlightened, he started to disassociate from his mother as well. It's very interesting that he never ever mentions the whole story of how his mother was humiliated or how his mother was impregnated by the Holy Spirit. Jesus makes no acknowledgement towards that because Jesus knows that to associate with the miracle or the misfortunes of his mother will not be able. It will cut this manifesting power. It will cut the manifesting power. Jesus disassociates completely from the validation of both his parents. Now, for him to be able to cultivate the sporofito power, for him to be able to cultivate the resurrection power, he had to look his mother dead in the eye and say to her, woman, there's your son. You go form a new msamo with Baruto Abaka. This is how I can break the generational curses on my mother Mary's side. Form msamo there. Right now, I must be completely disembodied. Complete destruction. Complete destruction. Right? So that I can be able to open up the dominion to spiritual enlightenment and power and sending down from the Akashic records, from the heavens, the unlimited potential and power of resurrection for himself and for others. And for others. So if you want this version of Jesus that takes you to God, be prepared. Be prepared because this version needs you to break down ilitu. And that means that your family must turn their back on you. And if they don't do it voluntarily, spirit will make sure that it happens. It's the only way, right? And you will go through a lot of physical misfortune. If you decide you want to implement or experience God from a seporofito point of view, and not from a money point of view. When he was manifesting things, He didn't need to have that water and blood come out of him. Why was it supposed to come out? Because he was born of a woman. He also ingested it. Right? So it needed, the ntwaso, the msamo altar needed to be poured out. He was killing all connection to bloodlines. Right? And that's what made him powerful. Right? And that is the energy of Jesus that we use. Because I am not your family. I need the Jesus unlimited energy to be able to look into your life and tell you what's going on. Because Jesus now says that me and you and our bloodlines are no longer important. It's irrelevant. He was opening the portal to the spirit world for Baba batla go porofeta. Ba reng ba batla go sebeletsa modimo in the form of moya. He was just cutting the matrix barrier lines. He did it for himself, and then he did it for me, and he did it for you. All he was doing, Jesus, was that he was saying that from now on, and anybody else who wants hore akathusa batho, badimo bam batho bathusa, baske ba re you are not part of our msamo, so we don't want you looking into our things. So you want this porofito version, you go through the death. And that's a one-man show. And you will have your Judases. And your Gobela must be your Judas. Listen, don't blame your Gobela. Your Gobela, I teach this in my Throne class. Gobela is designed to be a crook. Designed. Right? You must have your clothes taken away from you. You must have your whips. You must have your walk of shame. You must have all of those things. Right? You must be able then to sleep for 3 days, 3 years. No action. Nothing, no tangible prosperity in your life. That stone must cover your tomb where you're doing nothing. So when you are having a toxic relationship over and over, bulaya nawa, put it on the cross. Put the nawa on the cross. Let it have a tomb. It's called celibacy. It's going to come out of there resurrected, revived. It's going to come back resurrected and revived, right? Someone's asking now, can you not have both? Yes, you can. The issue is that most of us, we cannot fathom the concept. We're going back to Tabayamu Sibitsi. We cannot fathom the idea of 2 loaves of bread, no, 2 fish and 5 loaves of bread turning into 5,000. We've been programmed to think on a 1-and-1 scale, right? So manifesting power is where Jesus shows you that in 24 hours, the hours of the day don't matter. You manifest as you will at your liberty, but believing firmly in yourself, right? Shortest way to do that is to be like Keilo. Make a short decision, make a decision on the spur of the moment, wait for the opportunity, jump. Jump and hope that someone will catch you. If she had been afraid that her family would turn her back, she wouldn't have made that decision, right? She would have remained stuck. So the cross concept is where Jesus now applies the one son for one lamb of Christ for one Adam's sin. The whole point of the cross was for Jesus to show you enlightenment within the matrix. Because you believe 1 hour should become 1 hour's rate most. So 1 hour's rate, 16 rand per hour, is the cross. Right? And then 16 rand is the cross. Hour is Adam. Adam came before the cross. Right? The hour is what binds you. The hour is what binds you, because when you walk into a job or when you think of money, you are thinking of the hourly rate. So hour is the Adam. It's what binds you to work hard. That was his curse. You will work hard. Right? It is the hour. It's per hour the kind regards that you're looking for. The 16 rand is the cross. That's why Jesus now, in the matrix now, on the cross, okay, for Adam's nonsense, I'm going to replace it. One man for one man. Right? One man for one man. However, the living Jesus, the walking Jesus, who says, learn from me and do what I do, he takes only 2 fish, 5 loaves, expands it to 5,000. Right? And that's the difference between buporofeta le to manifest money. The one is that you are looking through the matrix. That's why Badimbalna, they give you guys the garments because they know you think through the matrix, through this life, through the 1 hour per hour, right? And they know that as you are learning, your energy is starting to flow now. Your energy is starting to do other things. You're starting to have a different confidence in yourself because you know you are becoming a Lerato or Gogo, whoever, who now you start to see miracles, cause very dizzy things, right? And now your whole concept of reality has been challenged, which is the tipping point into that fish and bread story. So they allow you to use the Adam and Jesus concept and the cross and the pain. That's why you guys are having spiritual lessons. It's only so that you can fulfill this, so that you can learn to break this, that you can go into the manifesting power of Jesus, that you can become free. So when he says, slaves, listen to your masters. Ooh, we hate that quote from the Bible. It's going to be the first quote I'm going to teach about with the seat of the self. You are a slave. You are a slave. Because you're walking into your job. Firstly, you hate it. Secondly, you are waiting for the hourly rate. So you're looking to, in your mind, working longer hours gives you overtime. But if you were to walk, that's why about respect your master slave. You must. You must respect. You're a slave, Mos. You're a slave. How are you a slave? Your consciousness. If you walked into your job being an independent private business within somebody else's business, same job, same desk, everything, you would most likely be able to reach targets and execute your work in less time. You would have opened a portal of manifestation, being at the same desk, right? And that portal will open your ranking up into the job, into whatever corporate. So the slavery is not just the physical chains of those who were enslaved. No. Is the fact that you walk into your job, you hate it because you think your job owns you. Your job is your Adam. Your job is your Adam who creates sin, right? By doing what he wants. Adam went and ate the apple, right? It was a consumption of something. You go into the job so that you can have a consumption of something, right? And your Jesus on the cross moment is where you get your lousy salary, right? But you can walk into that same job with the living Christ consciousness ideologies where you're saying, I'm there because they need my energy at that job. And you know, I want to give it. I want to give that energy, right? I want to give that energy. Woo. Right? You pray for your colleagues. You pray for things. You pray. You opening up the manifesting power within you. That same desk in that same corner and the annoying colleague becomes immaterial now, right? In your head, you are taking building blocks to manifest in your own business. You are seeing an aspect of business that you did not know until you worked that job. So guess what? If someone was to say, resign, we're giving you $1 million to do what you do in terms of skill, you know that skill in and out because you don't give a fuck about you waiting for the salary. So because you're not aligning your salary and your hours at work with your grocery cart, right? You are opening up the portals Everyone around you will respond because it's your mini business. When I started the salon industry, I thought this salon were like back in the day, where I'm the salon owner, y'all work for me, and it ends there. I was in for a rude awakening, a rude one. And people tried to tell me, right? Because I was approaching the salon from a 9-to-5 perspective. That actually, a salon is, these people buy the properties. A salon ki estate agency. Salon ki estate agency. You rent a chair out and everybody runs their own little business in there. Yeah, salon is a realtor. So me, the salon owner, I'm a realtor. I am renting out a chair. I'm accruing rental income. Everybody who works in the salon is their own individual business person. And I didn't get it at the time. That it means then that I don't need to check whether I relax or not. Just like what a realtor does. The property is there. It's been placed there. It's been placed there. Saka was just to come and buy rent, come collect rent, and maybe sell other things on the site, just like a realtor does. Or if there are other features, hey, the property is more expensive. That's all I needed to do, and allow everybody to run their businesses. But that's what I didn't know, right? But it is like that in you guys' day 9-to-5s. Y'all are your own bosses. You're your own boss with a baseline salary. So that's great, right? Because you're your own boss and somebody's making sure that your basic expenses are going to be covered. Doesn't matter what the salary is. Someone is making sure that your basic expenses are going to be covered. Just like my staff with rent a check or salonu. Right? They've got to make sure that they make enough money to give me basic. Right? And all those basics put together were going to give me lucrative amounts. Because I'd be making money exerting absolutely no energy. But in your job, it's like that. In your job, it's like that. Where's the energetic work? Apply complete detachment. Listen, I'm sorry to say it. If your mom has been physically, emotionally abused, the one thing you don't want to do as a girl or a boy child is subscribe to the idea that she's the victim. You don't want to do that. You don't want to do that. That's going to cut your money, because if you're a girl child, subconsciously, you will start to talk and think like her as a victim, as a person who's been put down. As a boy child, you will want to protect her, and you will attract a woman who is like the opposite of your mother, who will make you the victim. Right? What then should you do? You should acknowledge her life, her journey, her struggles. Right? And look at your mom from a financial point of view, not as an idiot. No. Because that's a whole other spiritual type of ndwaso on its own. But as somebody whose advice you will take only when it comes to your emotional and psychological well-being, and only if she's proven to you that she will make sure that you are never subjected to what she went through. That is why the children of mothers by Nelidi alcoholics, when their mothers die, on the other side, because the mothers were always very direct. A mother who's an alcoholic, I promise you, those mothers, when they die, they make the most fiercest mundao spirits. and they make sure their daughters get whatever they want, right? So what you should do is allow your mom to advise you from an emotional point of view, right? And provided it's not the victim's advice, provided it's not that, right? If your mom advises you to stay put and be quiet in whichever situation, and your mom doesn't have a sense of bakanya kangwanak, don't listen to her advice. It doesn't matter how well-meaning she is. She's under the influence of some altar. It's above her, right? Absolutely. It is to detach, not humunyatsa, not to look down upon her, because by doing that you are keeping yourself stuck in that altar, but by disassociating with the pain altogether, right? That is going to help you reach your money goals. Why? You're going to become fearless. If your father was the abuser or abuse you, it doesn't matter. Liena, don't have an opinion. I know it's hard to not have an opinion on who your father is. The reason why you find it difficult to have an opinion is because you associate your father's physical presence in this world with your identity. But from a spiritual place, your father is a whole entity on his own, and there was never, the only thing, Elukopanyang, is a spiritual agreement to manifest one another in this reality. Other than that, your father and the man next door have got nothing, they've got the same thing in common. So what your father does or didn't do becomes immaterial, becomes totally immaterial, right? You then don't need to subscribe to pleasing him or rebelling against him. You can simply walk away. He becomes just another human being, right? And if you struggle with that, with your parents, think about it this way. You have had past lives. You and your parents too. So somewhere on this planet, y'all's other bodies are sleeping somewhere. This reality that you call your parents, your mom, dad, non-existent. Your siblings, non-existent. All of y'all, linality bodies, this whole world. Right on this planet, not even on another planet, right here. So what is the tangible connection that you should have with other people's actions? Absolutely none. You actually owe yourself from a past life perspective, because it's like you died in Europe only to come and emerge in Africa. You owe the continuation of that life lesson. Because you've created now different environments, a different continent, a different background story, a different what. You owe that past life all that you are right now. Because apparently in your past life, when you died, you felt the conditions were not conducive because of the contract and the altar you belonged to at the time. So you waited for this altar. This altar, no matter how bad it is, it sounded like the better option. It sounded like the better option, right? So when you do that, what you want to call forgiving your parents, the abused parent is not the right one, because the abused parent perpetuated this situation, right? Involving you guys. The abused parent is not the victim. Perpetuated it, right? The abuser perpetuated. And I'm going to say this. There was a quote that my mother told me less than a year after she had been murdered by her husband. Worst thing that she asked me to do, right? About 6 to 8 months after she had been murdered, she instructed me to go and see her murderer husband and tell him that I forgive him.
and I did not forgive him. And initially I said, I'll never do that because you are my everything, right? I was so attached to her. Though when she was living, we had our issues, but my mother and I were very attached. I'm spiritually connected to her. So she said, I must go. And I said, I won't do it. And within a few weeks, I said, okay, I'll go. And I went. I went to go and see my mother's murderer, look him in the eyes, tell him that I forgive him and that I knew that it was a mistake. Didn't want to say this. I left and my heart was in pieces, right? But what I did not realize a year later was when she gave me the lesson. When I went there, I went as a direct replica of my mother. I was going to break the altar of blood between the two of them. And at the same time, my mother said to me, it was not a mistake. He butchered her. He literally butchered her. I think it was 12 slashes, even slit her throat. It was very gruesome. But my mother then a year later said to me, I want you to look at how this was all inevitable. And I said to her, how? How was this inevitable? She said, every time we would physically fight, we were practicing for this moment. Just like every time people have sex, they are practicing to create a human being. Do something often enough, it will yield results. And she said to me, from a subconscious point of view, him murdering her was the only way to finally put a stop to the abuse that he had witnessed his whole life. It was the only way to make him stop. And she said to me, him murdering me was also the only way to put a stop to my misery, because I kept giving myself to that toxicity. I went back to it over and over and over again. It was the only way to end my misery. And I asked my mother and I said, but what was so bad that you had to do that? She said, I simply didn't have a life purpose. I had been idling for my whole life. And somebody, through harming me, made me feel seen, even if it was painful. I had an opponent. I had someone to fight through my own sense of self-worthlessness. I needed to fight it out with myself. So I got an opponent. And he was a worthy opponent. I couldn't believe my mother was saying this. She said, he gave me the one thing that I never had the courage to give myself, but that I'd felt for many years. And she said, Lerato, I had been dead for a long time. For a long time. I'd been dead for so long. He just actioned it out. And she said, don't you feel so sorry for him? Because this was the only way for him to put a stop to his own misery. Had I left, yes, I would have left and saved my life. He would have continued. He would have continued. The trajectory was too far gone. And I got it. I got it. It was very painful, but I got it, right? And then she proceeded to say, isn't it interesting that when you guys stand next to murderers in your churches, testimony, how God has changed them.
And she said, you guys are clapping hands for those people. You're so proud of them. You're so proud of them that they are ex-convicts and that they've converted their lives to Christ. And she said, did you want him to stand in a church? Because had he been in your church a year later and confessed, do you know that he would have had a round of applause? And I said to her, no, well, I guess. And she says, sometimes you guys are so hypocritical because what is good and godly is always when it is external, when it is at arm's length, then it is godly. But when it is happening here, you feel that this God must punish that person. And she said, how many of you guys are standing? Some people have killed people. All he needed to do, that man, was to give a tithe and give his life to the Lord, according to society. And she said to me, I saved you the trouble of waiting for him to give his life to the Lord. I saved you that. Waiting for your quote unquote justice. I needed you to go there and fucking give him his absolution. You needed to give him his absolution. Right? Because you would have never been okay had he not had a I forgive you or some type of higher power forgiveness. She said to me, you would have never been okay. It's okay when people say God forgives people. Okay then. So you were going to wait a whole lifetime. So I saved you that. Told you to go forgive him on behalf of God. And how did it turn out? He killed her in the beginning, just after in 2010. And just the year before 2020, in 2019, this man lost his mind. And my mother, from the grave, went, sought him out, destroyed him. Why? I was detached. I was detached and my mother had bigger fish to fry. I was so attached to her death, I was not seeing the toxic marriage that I was in. Power of altars. The power of altars. Okay? So this was a life lesson. And the lesson was, my mother was saying, don't align with my victimhood. There was nothing victim about me. It was inevitable. It was inevitable. Okay. So, I know, we speak about a lot of horrors and all of that. Had a conversation about that and I was like, with a friend recently. And this past week, so many things have happened. I got a call about my father that I'd blocked because Papa toxic. But that same conversation from my mother, it came back this week in preparation for this class. And my mom this week about my dad, because I'd blocked him. I was like, I can't deal with my dad for about 2 years. And this week, my elder sister said to me, he's not well. And my mother said to me, do you know how much I used to love this man? I loved this man. I never, not once when I was alive, tried to tell you that I don't love him. I love him so much. I was fucking with him. And my mother was like, the relationship between you and your dad is mutually exclusive. You thought it's symbiotic. It's not. My mother said, I loved him. You didn't have a choice or a say in it. So you judging him for things that I loved about him is immaterial. You're not the one dating him. You're not the one sleeping with him. Why do you want to judge him? And I said to her, because your baby daddy was toxic. And she said, to you, he's toxic. But remember, you're an onlooker. You're a byproduct of the love that I had for this guy. You are a byproduct of the love that I had for this guy. And this guy is sick now. And if I was physically here, I would go and see him because I loved him. Right? So my father is someone else. My mother's husband is another person. But, you know, this week she said to me, call him or don't call him, right? But I'm not waiting for you to forgive him. I'm the one who loves him. I'm the one who loves your daddy. He's my hoe. I loved him. And I said, okay, do you want me to call him? And she said, call him. You're checking up on my man, on my person. And as I've given you my gifts, my spiritual gifts, I want you to protect and love your dad fearlessly, regardless of his flaws as a person. When we're busy having you, we were not talking about that, eh? Accept him for who he is, because those are the things I loved about him. So I called my father this week, and it was a wonderful conversation, you know. And we spoke, and Nale Papaka, we are too much alike. But after that conversation, I remembered how I had not seen him for so many years, but I knew that the brand that my father smoked. I knew what he looked like. Seeing him after many years, seeing my father after many years, right? I was able to recognize my father in a crowd of men. So that, just the memories that I know so much about him, even though he was, I probably last saw my father when I was 3-4 years old, right? And later met him when I was around 16. But being able to recognize him in a crowd. I mean, I remember one time we'd gone to Lenasia and my grandmother to buy tiles. And I was reminded of all of that this week. And my father was there. I recognized him from in the middle of Lenasia, Kisanagana. And that, my mom said to me, that's what makes you the golden child. You were always the child that loved us and understood us independent of who we were as parents. So she said, keep that role. Keep that. I'm not there. Give your father the same love you gave me. And that was a wonderful conversation. So, in truth, there's nothing to forgive. People don't need your forgiveness. You think they do. They don't. They don't need your forgiveness. Why? From an altar perspective, and even from an ancestral point of view, and even from a religious point of view, in the terms of Jesus, you want to manifest money, you must realize that people don't give a fuck. Right? And you want to manifest money, you must know that you must heal yourself. You must learn. The lesson is for you. Your dad is not there because you are the one who needs the lesson. It's not that he's not there because he's an irresponsible father. Not from the perspective of making money. You don't need him. You never need him. He's done his job. Right? You can be grateful to those who took over because he left you in a place of safety, or a place that he regards as safety. Right? And your mom chose him. Your mom chose him. So if you want to manifest money, turn your I am healing into an I'm healed, and make sacrifices of people. I think I did a class on how to sacrifice people. Sacrifice yourself. Sacrifice yourself and sacrifice people. Meaning sacrifice emotions. Emotions are the one thing, the one way that the altar Yakuhaluna continues to live through you. That the altar Yakuhaluna lives through you. You feel sad, you feel traumatized, you feel hurt. The demon from your altar is living. It's feeding off of that. The day you think, oh, well, they don't give a fuck. My dad doesn't give a shit. Now I'm in a better position. I don't need his validation. Okay? I don't need it, right? In as much as he doesn't want to give it. He doesn't want to give it. It's his human free will. He doesn't want to give it. Or he doesn't know how to do it, right? Gokomkulu, shadow work. Shadow work has got a lot to do with the prophetic, the spiritual channeling of energy. Shadow work is beneficial for that. Manifesting means that you quickly bring your shadow work to a hot minute. I'm going to tell you guys what Gogo Happy told me last week. Brilliant. Now that you're asking about shadow work. She said to me, if you think about the worst experience that has ever happened in your life, that experience happened in a matter of minutes, seconds, hours. But it was in one day. It wasn't over the extended period of your life, right? Gogo Happy is an accountant. She's like a money guru. And she said, so in your 37 years of living, that one day that brought you the worst news of your life, how do you want it to be to affect another 12 years? How do you account for that? Put that on your spiritual and energetic balance sheet. You've got liability at 12 years over an asset, a current asset, one day. Make that make sense. And I said to her, this is so powerful. I'm going to share this. And she said, it happens like this, right? But also, as it happens, it is proof of what was requiring your intervention on your altar. Break these altars. Break these altars. Break these altars. So the people who say that you can't ask your ancestors for money are the people that assume that the altar in their homes has not been broken. So these are the people who do not acknowledge shadow work. And they think that just because they call Jesus Christ, that he gets to override. The easiest way to override the altar at your home is to make hard decisions where you put no one else above you. You become your own Alpha and Omega. You become your own Jesus. And as you need to sacrifice people, because normally this is where it begins, the toxic altar must make itself manifest in the form of a partner who doesn't validate you, who harms you emotionally, who makes you feel insecure, blah, 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 blah. The demon must manifest itself as somebody sitting next to you, right? Get that person out of your life. Feel nothing for them. Feel nothing for them, because in the broader sense of things, their physical body is dead in another part of the world. They are not tangible proof of anything other than an entity that was made manifest in your life. Nothing more. Feel nothing for them. Abatamai. Right? And feel for yourself. Feel for yourself. I don't know if you guys want to add comments. Let me cut this class short. Have a great evening. This was a hard lesson. I'm still grasping it. It's gone over my head as well. But I hope to start the series on the seat of the self. I want to start teaching spirituality in terms of money, right? I'm going to post this, definitely. I'm going to post this tomorrow, right? Tomorrow. If your mom is toxic, listen, disassociate from her. Disassociate from your mother. She's got a real physical body, a past life body of hers lying in this world somewhere. So who you think is your mom is just another avatar. It's a mirage. It's a mirage. And the energy speaking behind her that is toxic towards you is proof of a demonic altar. That's all she is. She's just a mirage. And Gogo B is asking how, because if we ever believe in past lives, your mom has lived before. So in this planet means she's died. Means your mother's real other body somewhere here, dug up somewhere. Right? Somewhere it's dug up here. With the codependency, I think I'm going to talk about that. I've been given a spell on how to break feminine bondages in our bloodline. But I'm still practicing on it, right? Narcissistic father that is still alive. Celibacy is going to help you a lot. Luhu DJ, believe it or not. But we're going to talk about that. I hope I'm going to do that. Next week, I want to talk about rape. I want to talk about rape and what Badim will say about it. Sexual assault, physical assault, that type of thing, right? Exes who keep coming back. Anybody whoever has done you bad, they're a physical avatar of a spirit. So there's a certain spirit that comes, destroys you, leaves with a physical avatar, and as you heal, you get your light energy back. That demon misses you, comes back to come and take from your pool of powerful, pure energy. Right? So just like my mom and her husband practiced for this murder, that's what an ex who keeps leaving you and coming back, that's what they represent. They're a physical avatar of a spirit that keeps knocking at your door and you open for it. Have no mercy. No. I'm chilling here, I'm single. If that person doesn't want me, I don't even take it personal. I don't give a fuck. It doesn't mean anything. Or does that person find me desirable or not, or appropriate? No. It's got nothing to do with me. That person is their own Jesus in their life. That person's their own Jesus. Right? And in the moment when they walk away from me, I represent a physical avatar of something that they are not comfortable with. I'm a physical representative of something they are not comfortable with. If they were, they would be here. They would run to me. So they are not finding their sense of home with me. So, so with exes that keep coming back, don't allow people, spirits, entities to enter your life that way. If an entity leaves you, because when you leave, heartbreak, guys, is like the equivalent of hell. Like heartbreak is, I've got to teach about emotions, right? And how they feed into dark entities. Heartbreak sends you down into hell fast. So when this person is okay leaving you and hurting you and leaving you, and as you regain yourself, they come back. The sex will be good because there's a clash of energies. That's what make-up sex is. Make-up sex is a clash of energies. You make up, and that is why it is so delicious, because you and that person are into very opposite energies, trajectories. You guys are literally colliding. You guys are moving at different speeds, oscillating at different vibrations, and then you collide. Right? Of course, where there's a collision, there's an explosion. That's what excitement is. But it doesn't take you anywhere. Right? Love and light, we're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about like rape, whatever, spiritual energies, entities, sadness, what it does to you guys. I don't know. I pray. I'm missing her. I'm going to ask her how to make the videos sitting at and just save them. Right? But I want to release like a seat of the self, things that have got to do with how you apply spirituality in your practical lives. That's it. I'm going to quote in the Bible and I'm going to make it short. Have a great night. Love and light to you guys. Over 2 hours. I'm going to post this tomorrow. Have a great evening. Thokozani lesedi khanya. Makhosi.